Welcome back to the Core Capital newsletter. I'm Pascal Corcus, and this week we're going to talk about, are we in a recession? So what is a recession? It's a period of time where the economy pulls back. There is less money in the system, less activity, less jobs, which reflects across the whole economy. So you're gonna see businesses slow down, less jobs available, and the cost of things don't really differ in a standard recession. So in the sense of qualifications, there's not really qualifications in a standard way, but one, your economy is slowing down. Less jobs available, less money moving in the system, businesses getting shut down because they can't make enough money, people losing their jobs, losing their homes, and there's not as many jobs available for people that are leaving college. What is a sign, right? I tell people, like, I'm a financial doctor and I review the charts and the symptoms to see this shows that you probably have this disease or issue. So one of the things that comes up is the yield curve. The yield curve is the amount of interest you're being paid measured over time. So normally in a healthy economy, short-term debt is low interest rate, and longer term debt, you pay higher interest, because if you're gonna loan out your money for a longer term, you're taking on more risk. And because of that, you would have to pay more for that. In a recession period, you'll see the yield curve flatten and invert. What does that mean? If it's flattened, that means short-term debt, medium-term debt, and long-term debt is the same interest rate. Inverted means short-term debt costs you more than long-term debt. So that means that people currently think that the economy now is very risky, so they're charging more now. When you see the market saying, we think things are risky, so we're gonna charge more interest for short-term money, they will be a signal. Because the people who are providing the debt think things are more risky, it gives us that signal that we're going into a recession. Side note, it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy, because once you start paying more interest, when your interest rates go up, that is your floor, right? Like, say your basic cost of items or running your business, one of them is the amount of interest you pay. When that goes up, that means the cost of everything goes up. Another example is gas. When gas and energy goes up, that is a basic cost of everything that we do. That means everything becomes more expensive. And when everything becomes more expensive, the profitability usually gets reduced, and then eventually the cost of goods go up. Those things normally are not good for the economy. Interest rates being higher isn't very good, healthy, and normally higher energy costs are also usually not very healthy. There are more signals and symptoms. It's kind of a combination, right? Where an inversion of the yield curve is a signal, but it's also a symptom, because that's caused by the decisions people have made. As people choose to be riskier and the short-term time period seems riskier, they're gonna charge higher interest. So it is a symptom and a signal in one. If having diabetes is a signal that you're having, maybe eating too much sugar, but at the same time, it's also a symptom of you eating too much sugar. You could have diabetes just naturally because you're genetically prone to it. So it's not always both. But if we're talking about right now, where the recession we're going into is man-made. We caused this to happen. It doesn't have anything to do with like outside forces or the Ukraine or anything else. We caused this to happen. We can fix it as well. The answer is yes. When you raise interest rates, it can put you into a recession. But at the same time, the amount that they're raising interest rates isn't above the inflation rate, so it's not really going to fix the inflation problem. It's only going to I don't even know what their goal is to damper down inflation, but it's not going to actually fix inflation, because to fix the inflation problem, you have to raise interest rates higher than the inflation rate. So they're stating inflation is like 7%, 8%. They would have to raise interest to 8 or 9% to do that. But the fact is the real inflation rate is actually like 16%. So they would have to raise interest rates to 18. I don't see them bringing it to 8 or 9 or even 18. If they did, it wouldn't be for long, because our system, with the amount of money that our government owes, it would not be able to sustain that interest payment. We don't collect enough money in taxes. They would print additional money so the government could pay for the additional interest it would owe, which would only devalue our currency even more. And that doesn't really solve our long-term problem.
According to an article on CNN Business, Deutsche Bank is the first bank to actually forecast a recession in the US starting later next year, 2023. And they predict that it's only going to be a mild recession, with unemployment peaking above only 5% in later 2024. Compared to the Great Recession that had 10% in 2009. And then also at the same time, CNBC, according to their polls, say that 81% of people in the US do think that we are likely to go into a recession. But you say we already are in a recession.
Yes, if you check the yield curve, it already inverted earlier this year, which is one of the signs that show that we're in a recession or that we're heading towards a recession. I think that we're already in a recession. Our system is already decreasing. And if you also look at the fact right now, the government shows the current unemployment rate, and I think it's showing it roughly at like 4 or 5%. But our true unemployment rate, if you check all the people that are stopped looking for jobs and or gave up looking for a job, it's closer to around 9% of our population. So if you're adding all of those factors in, it shows that we're currently in a recession. And I think that their assessment isn't accurate. I think it's probably going to be worse than that. Do I think it's going to be as bad as the Great Recession? It doesn't need to be, but it can be. But I do think it's going to be a little bit worse than what Deutsche Bank's assessment is. I think we're going to have more issues because of the current decisions that are being made aren't the best. So I am not confident that the government is going to make the right decisions to adjust with our current economy. So that is why I think it's going to get worse. I think it will. In the Great Recession, we had very high unemployment, people losing their homes, the inability to get a loan. The banking system was suffering. So we had a financial meltdown. What I see differently here is people still will lose jobs, but there's still going to be a high demand for people that are hardworking, and the demand for goods is still going to be very high. I still see that people will be able to get loans, but the interest rates will be higher. I see that the foreclosures will happen, but I don't think it'll be as bad as the Great Recession. Many of the properties sold in the last 10 years, the requirements for loans were a lot higher. The borrowers were a lot stronger. There's a lot more equity. I don't think there'll be so many foreclosures or short sales. I think people will sell, but they're not gonna foreclose or short sell. They're gonna sell and get some cash out. I think what we're gonna have is more of a stagflation, and that we're gonna have more significant nominal losses. What does nominal mean? It means adjusted for inflation. So you will have the stock market, say, begin the year at 32,000 and end the year at, say, 32,000, where, okay, that was a flat year. Didn't go up, didn't go down. Nominally, we will lose because that same 32,000 at the end of the year, you won't be able to buy as much stuff with it. If you're young, that doesn't kind of mean a lot to you. Now, if you are in the middle of your life, 55, 65, 75, the older you get means more, because the money you have remaining, it won't go as far. What does that mean? As you get older, you're saving more money to retire. You might have 200, 300, 500, a million, 2 million, 10 million, whatever the dollar amount is. But whatever the dollar amount is that you have, you're planning to spend it for the next 5, 10, 20, 30 years. And you could be calculating that you're gonna be living on $50,000 a year. Well, when inflation goes up, the cost of the same standard of living won't be 50. Based off of the inflation, or the true inflation rate we're hitting is about 15% a year. So you would need to have an additional $7,500. If you were planning to spend $50,000 a year, you would need to spend $57,500 for that year. Now, you would think, okay, that's tough, but now I need to bring 15% extra towards my retirement. That would be bad, but what makes it worse is that the following year, you're probably gonna have another 15% increase. So it's not slight straight line adjustment. We're talking about an exponential risk. So if your income isn't exponentially going up with the inflation, so your returns are adjusted for the nominal risk out there, you're not going to have enough money to pay for that standard of living that you are planning on having. So the problem is that when we're talking about the stock market, which is supposed to be a reflection of what's happening in the real world, but unfortunately, sometimes there's a disconnect from Wall Street to Main Street. Another example is the price of gold. The price of gold right now is around like 2,000. Well, if you look at the true demand and not the paper market, the cost of gold should be over 20,000. But there is a difference between Wall Street and Main Street. With that disconnect and people not having true data to refer to see what do I really have to do and how much do I really have to have to retire comfortably, that's gonna bring a lot of pain. This is the difference between this recession and the other recession. People aren't gonna lose their house and have to go rent. People are going to lose their purchasing power, so grandma, kids, and grandkids will have to live in the same house. Not because they got kicked out of their house, but because they're gonna choose to move out because they can't pay. Now, some people will say that's the same thing. It comes to the same result, but it's not technically the same thing. So I hope people realize this faster, sooner. The longer they wait to address this issue, the harder it's gonna be. It's kind of like, again, when you're sick. The longer you wait to take your medicine or make the proper adjustments in your lifestyle to get healthier, the harder it's gonna be for you to get out of that hole. Because what nominal means is you are in the same place. What you don't realize is that you're in a sinkhole and you sunk because you feel like, well, I'm standing in the same spot. Well, based off of how expensive everything else got, you are deeper in a hole. And that is the difference. That $1 million doesn't mean anything anymore because $1 million is worth less. So that's, I think, what's gonna be the big difference between now and then. In the Great Recession, people felt the pain in the sense of everyone was scared. This recession is gonna be more like a frog getting boiled, where it doesn't realize the heat keeps getting turned up until it's too late. And they're like, wow, this is a big hole for me to dig out of. And I hope people realize it sooner than later. Make sure you smash the like button. It definitely helps the algorithm. It helps more people see our videos, learn, and it keeps from our economy going down the toilet. So make sure you share as well. Thank you guys.